Joyce hired me to play down at Music Mondays in Canby. And boy, that connection, Joyce, has been just incredibly rich. Thank you very much for that.
You are also scheduled to be the first open mic event in Canby too, but sadly that had to be postponed, I hope.
I hope so too. Yeah. I mean, that sounded like a lot of fun. We've had, there's the amazing musicians up and down the river who I have connected through, in part through some of that, Joyce. It has just really impressed me. There's so many original musicians too, writing their own material and doing their own kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that's been real fun. Real fun.
Your group has been very good for one of the members of our Canby Area Arts Council, Scooter. It's been very. You got him off the farm a few times, so that's good.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's been a real fun addition, and he and I have connected over. He does some recording. He has that capability too, and I'm looking at next trying to do that. There's a logical extension from songwriting to producing or recording a song. They are not one and the same thing. And so much, I have a lot to learn about the songs that I'm writing. If you play them on an acoustic guitar with one person, they all tend to be that sound. But they could have different intents and they could go different places. If I knew that, if I knew the power of producing during the recording process, I could write better. I could write to some end goal that I knew going in that I don't now. So that's my next SMAC grant that I'm going to write. and Scooter.
That sounds like a pretty good idea.
And Scooter, to tie it all together, kind of introduced me to that, okay, with some expertise, some training, there's a lot that could be done. And particularly a lot in these COVID days when we don't get together.
Yes, he's very knowledgeable and particular.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's probably about good. I can probably do the formal introduction here. So it is my pleasure to welcome Lee Kanten to SMAC's third Thursday Artist Talk. Lee is a musician from Ortonville in Big Stone County, and he's been involved with our organization in quite a few ways recently. In 2018, he and his brother were our musical entertainment for SMAC's annual celebration in Ortonville. And in 2019, he received a SMAC Established Career Individual Artist Grant for his project called Lee Learns to Write Music. And I'm sure he'll talk to you a little bit more about that when he speaks. He also performed as a guest musician for our artist receptions, or one of our artist receptions at the SMAC Gallery in December of 2019. And most recently, he was highlighted in our 2020 annual celebration as the feature for Big Stone County. And some of you may have seen we had like a video highlight for every county to celebrate one highlighted school, community art project, or artist. So that video highlight can be viewed on SMAC's YouTube channel as well as our Facebook and our website. Other than that, I invite Lee to talk a little bit about himself and his musical journey, his involvement with SMAC, or his experience with the grant process, and his whole project that he worked on. So over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Christy. I appreciate it. And let me start there, that I really appreciate this SMAC grant. It is, well, I need to go back to the beginnings, but let me start from that thank you. This has been a powerful experience in my life, and one that would not have happened without the help of SMAC. So I'm a grateful recipient for sure. My roots to Southwest go back to, I grew up in Ortonville. I eventually ended up attending college at Southwest State, and my musical career kind of got started there with a bunch of theater majors. We would put together things for the talent show, and have a great deal of fun doing it. So we put together a 50s act one year. Sha Na Na was popular. This was back in, I want to say 73. And the campus got hooked on it. It became a campus phenomena. Everybody was out dancing a lot. So we won the talent show, and we kind of thought that was the extent of it. But one of the guys was doing his senior project in theater and had mailed back the scripts and had not insured them, and they got lost. And he was on for $400, which back then was a lot of money. And it was either not graduate or pay this $400. So we defiantly said, you know, we'll make this money up. We'll put together a whole show and we'll play at somebody's barn and we'll make some money. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, it came true. I mean, we played over at Earth 2. I don't know, it probably does not exist. It had a disco floor, and it was just cool. And the guy, not knowing, you know, anything about us, only some buzz, said, well, sure, you can have the gate. I'm not paying you anything, but you can charge $1 at the door. Well, in 2 nights, we crammed like 1,500 people in there. It was mostly because the campus just said, this is a thing, you know, and everybody did that. So we went on and played the rest of that school year, had a fabulous time with it. And about a year later, a bunch of us had graduated and moved on. Some were still there. We gathered at a bar in Minneapolis on an afternoon to plot some kind of return engagement. Let's do a reunion gig. And before the afternoon was up, we had all promised to quit our jobs and arrive back in Marshall 2 weeks later. And we did that. And put together a show, found ourselves an agent out of Minneapolis and bought a school bus and went on the road for a couple of years, just endlessly traveling around in this school bus and playing. And Southwest just enabled virtually all of that. It was a small school. It was accessible. You knew your professors. They could look at what you were doing and say, yeah, you're learning something, and let you do it, encourage you to do it. You know, they gave us rehearsal space. They gave us critiques. They gave us, you know, informal kinds of things. It launched us, and for many of us, it launched careers that one of the shifters was Isaiah Whitlock Jr. He has one of the lead roles in The Five Bloods. He is one of Spike Lee's go-to actors now. He had a long lead in The Wire. He was one of the shifters. Another guy did a lot of writing for the comedy shows for Mike and Molly and for the Roseanne show, who was Clutch. He was out of that area too. Anyway, that ended up launching. We played for a couple of years, and then finally people had to go back and say, hey, come on, let's get real and go. We have to have jobs and the like. And so I did. I went on then to a career in film and video that started in Sioux City at the Major 9 there, and then I went to Minneapolis where I worked in commercial production for a bunch of years, and then eventually my wife and I, who was Jeannie Stubbe then, also a graduate of Southwest State, formed a business that did corporate work for large corporations, DuPont and 3M and General Mills and the like were our clients. And a lot of it had to do with women coming into the workforce. This was back in the 80s, which led us to this mistaken belief that somehow or another we had progressed further than we have. An aside, so we got to do a lot of that work, and along the way, I got to keep playing music. That band of 7 or 8 of us that was Clutch and Shifters became a 4-piece band that played for weddings and those kinds of things, and eventually we got down to a trio, and then these guys kept dying, honestly, and it was eventually my brother and I as a duo. And so then when I retired 6 years ago, and my brother stayed behind in Minneapolis, I moved back to Ortonville. We are no longer a duo. He has gone off and playing with other people, so I've become a solo act, and have been having a lot of fun with that. And that led me eventually to, do I have something to say? I've always just copied somebody else's songs, or a cover artist, that's all. And you start wondering, do I have something that I can say, that I want to say? And I was doing a lot more writing for the local newspaper, and just kind of writing and pushing ideas around and pushing words around, and really liking that, and realized that, well, songwriting might be exactly the writing I want to do. And some people experienced with SMAC and with the grant process really kind of pushed me toward looking at that. And it seemed simple, although as I kept running into people who wrote songs, I said, would you help me learn? They all looked at me just blankly with, I don't know, I mean, ask any artist how do you do what you do? There's some magic, there's some unknown quantities, and this such a free form thing without really a medium, without a something you could work and apply. Was this just a gift that was given to some people, or were there skills you could learn? Well, I finally run into one of the old musicians from Southwest State, Gary Rue. He played in lots of bands and ended up, it didn't end up, but taught at McNally Smith Music College in St. Paul for 10 years. Taught songwriting 1 and 2. And a guy who was just a rock and roller, who I only knew him as, wow, what he could burn up on a guitar was amazing. Had, in fact, a set of rules. And he was pretty hard-nosed about these rules, about how I was going to write. There were things like the rhymes can't just be close. They have to lock. The meter for verse 1, 2, and 3 has to be the same. Otherwise, you end up with a piece of sheet music that goes on and on because you've made small changes to each one of those verses. Just all these kind of rules that at first struck me as odd, and later I realized was, okay, that's the craft. That's the get up and work at this, and work at it. And along the way, other things he said is don't go back and rework these songs. This is what this grant is about, is learning a process for doing this. It's not for producing the next great melody. Um, so, um, so I worked with him. Gary came out, essentially to back up, fill in a little blank there. I used the grant primarily to hire Gary Rue, who was this experienced songwriting teacher. And he came out and lived with us for the better part of a week. And he and I kicked music around all day long, and it just launched the whole thing. I also hired Sarah Thompson of the Echoes of Peace Choir out of Duluth, because that woman has some spirit inside of her that is music. She is an activist writer. She has written for the First Nation people. She was at Standing Rock. She has written for the LGBTQ community. She believes that music can make a difference, truly, not just make your toes happy. And I went up and lived at her place then. She lives up near Duluth in the woods. And she just the near opposite of Gary. Indeed, had real small essential truths. And one of them was be quiet and listen. To lots of, then that conversation went on and on and on. We went for walks. We sat around, sang songs. Her songs, I hadn't written any at that point, but just played lots of music and went for long walks, and walked along the North Shore, and it kept coming back to listen. So eventually I did, and the songs got better and better. And that was the thing that I was happiest about, was not that, wow, Nashville's going to come knocking on my door for these songs. But I got better. I was able to express things. I was able to make Jeannie cry, and others. I wrote a song about Fran Heitzman, who was the founder of Bridging, an organization in Minneapolis that furnishes homes for people coming out of homelessness. And the brainchild of one old man in retirement just figured something out, and he died recently. And so I wrote a song about him, and they ended up using it as a fundraiser. And then we ended up making a music video out of it, walking through all of their work to use as part of their virtual gala. And those, I wrote a song about a dog that got lost, and to try to help the people who lost her get through the experience. And it was a powerful experience, being able to write something that that changed somebody's attitude or feeling, that actually worked, did what it was supposed to do. So I have had just a fabulous year writing songs. It's been fun and therapeutic, and these days more of the therapy has seemed necessary. That was a long answer to a question that I don't think got asked.
It was all interesting. It was fascinating. Do we want to open it up for questions yet, or do we just want to have Lee play some music? Does anyone have any questions?
Lee, do you have a link to the music video anywhere? The one that is involved with helping homeless find homes?
Oh my, I sure do. I sure do. And I can somehow or another probably get this translated back. Of course, the device that has that information on it is the one that I'm looking at right now. And the other device is the one that's given me a stream to get to it. So I will have to follow up on that. But yeah, I do. That was fun.
Yeah, you can send us an email with the link and we can get it out to
All
you
right.
guys for sure and share it.
Southwest has another talent show going on right now, a virtual talent show. And so I submitted a video for it, and it's in the top 10 finalists, which I think there were 10 entries, but called Thank You. And it was the last song that I wrote in the series. And it was intended to thank those two teachers, certainly, but to thank teachers in general. Teachers rank for me with nurses and farmers as really the essential people of the world. So I wanted the song to thank all of my teachers. A barroom fool trying to be cool says, teachers, that's what's wrong with our schools. That sounded dumb up here in the bleachers, so I wrote down this song to thank my teachers. Some with stern looks taught from books, finding truth in crannies and crooks. A book said she will always be the promise for humanity. Stories great and small, stories to guide us one and all. Truth and myth and some deep fiction taught me to write with true conviction. Thank you, my friend, Tusen tak, min vän. Muchas gracias, amigo. Asante sana, Rafiki Yangu. My teacher, thank you. Hi, Bruce. He held the holy in the tip of his hand, screaming guitar in a Beatles band. A rocker's heart he gave to me, bedrock rules that set me free. How to write the words, how to make them sing like birds. Write what you know and what is real, but most of all, write what you feel. Thank you, my friend. Tusen tak, min vän. Muchas gracias, amigo. Asante sana, Rafiki Yangu. My teacher, thank you. She gave the gift of quiet to me by the shores of Gitchigumi. Be still, she said, and if you listen, you can hear the snow glisten, hear the green grass grow, soft sound of the twilight glow, hear the wind when it doesn't blow. Listen, she said, and you will know. Thank you, my friend. Tusen tack, min vän. Muchas gracias, amigo. Asante sana, rafiki yangu. My teacher, thank you. My teacher, thank you. Thanks. Thank you. There was the chorus in those languages. I am Norwegian by ancestry, and my mother gave us the gift of singing music together. Her and her family just shared this from Norway to here, and so there's Norwegian in it. There's Spanish in it. About 10 years ago, I got a chance to work on a documentary for Compassion International that took us to the Philippines and to Honduras and then to Kenya. So there's a line in Spanish and a line in Swahili. Because of the incredible teaching that those people we met there did for me, and in another story for my son. But and so I wanted to include them. All of these people who are teachers who don't stand in classrooms and don't, they don't have the title. They don't, and you can't even point to them and say they taught me something, but they do, and so I wanted to thank all the people who teach me. Bruce Meyer is one of them. One of my informal great teachers. So, unless interrupted, I will go on playing and singing. So, interrupt.
I had a question, actually. I was just curious during the process how many songs you came up with that you felt like this is a complete finished thing that I can use, versus how many pieces of things or things that just didn't come together.
I wrote 14 songs during the process. That I completed. I have virtual notebooks, with a lot of half-started things. But I wrote 14 songs. There are half a dozen of them at least that I would sing for anybody, anywhere, anytime. I think they honestly reflect something I want to say. I am pleased by the craft of them, and I think they have something to be said for people other than me. I can universalize something out of it. So I'm prone to giving myself a high grade. Half of those songs I'm really proud of. Yeah.
I have a question, Lee. This is Joyce.
Yeah.
Did you find the songwriting process to be harder than you expected, about what you expected, or do you find some songs just come and some you just labor over? I mean, how was the experience for you as far as difficulty?
I would divide that answer into two. Writing the lyric became just a joyful experience. and the tools that Gary specifically gave me for doing that was fun. Because what would happen, Joyce, is that driving down the road, something Jeannie would say, something I would say, would just whoa, and bless her heart, she would at times, if I were driving, she would dictate those, you know, handful of words that would contain the kernel of a song. He's tailgating through paradise, rushing here, darting there. He's all coffeeed up and racing round, just tailgating through paradise. We're driving to Alaska, driving through Banff on our way to Alaska, and just stunning beauty, unbelievable. We're driving down, you know, a narrow little road, and there's a guy tailgating us. And you think, well, he's missing all of this. You know, when he's concentrating, tapping his brakes. If I slow down a little bit, I mean, he's just missing it all. And something that I don't know that either one of us would identify who said the tailgating through paradise. Actually, it started as tailgating through heaven, but that didn't work rhythmically as well. And so that thing, in some ways, wrote itself. When we landed somewhere later on that day, and I started piecing that together, the three acts of that story kind of laid themselves out. Then there's a lot of nudging it and crafting it to end up with rhymes that lock and words that you like saying and things like that. But so that part of it became just a real fun exercise, Joyce. I mean, like, okay, you have to go out and get some aerobic exercise, but you get to go ride your bike. You know, I mean, it became really fun. Melody remains elusive to me, and I don't have a similar method to unlock it. I among things, come up against my limitations as a guitarist, that I haven't mastered all of the unique, wonderful chords that there are. I played too narrow a range of music. I never listened to jazz. You know, I mean, the kind of things that can really. I listened to an interview with Willie Nelson, and he was listening to a lot of jazz, and when he brought that into country music, it was like they'd never heard this before. And there was something about the way he put it during some radio interview I was hearing him about how important it is to do parts of it that you don't like. You know, I'm not a jazz fan, but I should be listening to that for what might break me out of my preconceptions. So that's harder and a little more frustrating, I think, Joyce, because I run up against my own limitations, and boy, you can find yourself borrowing a line from a song. You know, it goes like this, and I'll say, "Oh no, that's somebody else's song already. Somebody else wrote that melody." So, does that answer your question? The morning sun sends a gentle breeze, starts the song of soprano. My own song, and I forgot it. The morning sun sends a gentle breeze, starts the song of soprano leaves. The branches bend in harmony. The wind and tree write a melody. The singing tree sings to me. I feel strong, I belong beneath the singing tree. This is my mother's family, the Norwegians who came across and landed in Chippewa County. I started thinking about them and had an artist from Ortonville put, oh, it's upside down or bent the wrong way, the singing tree on my arm with the last 6 notes of What a Wonderful World It Is. And if some of you know John White, by the way, hi John, Naomi, who was an artist in Ortonville, moved back to Florida, and she put this tattoo on me. So this is the song, The Singing Tree, about that family. I'm apparently forgetting some chords, so it'll be fun. Born of fjords, her fate to roam, her roots now deep in a prairie home. Her silent snow, the seed in spring, falls on hearts, and song takes wing. Old trees must die, it's nature's thing. We will too, and no longer sing. But trees live on, and so we could, if like a tree, we leave behind some wood. Wood to build a fire, warming hearts. Wood to build a home, all its parts. Wood to frame a painting or a poem. Finally a box to carry us home. The singing tree sings to me. I feel strong, I belong beneath the singing tree. That's to my mom, Goody was her name. She would, in the evenings, there were 5 of us kids. So when dinner was done, she would go sit at the piano while we did dishes and play the piano. And so to this day, I still like doing dishes. I just have that, that association of her. She would sing, soft as the voice of an angel, breathing the lesson unheard. Hope with a gentle persuasion whispers her comforting word. Whispering hope. And so that family grew up on a farm, built a sod hut on a farm north of Montevideo, right on 40, not far from the Chippewa River. And it's been occupied by Jorgensens for 150 years now. My cousin still farms there. We would go there. Uncle Ira, his dad, played in the Big Bend barn dance. And when you were a little kid, if you could play a ukulele satisfactorily, you could come and stand on stage. So my very first performance memory is the Watson Town Hall, which is still there, and still, thanks to the Meander, sadly not this year, the last 2 or 3, I've gotten to play there on Meander Friday night at the Watson Town Hall in memory of my Uncle Ira. So it's been a hard year for, I know, all of the artists. Everything we do is about bringing people together. I mean, even if you can say, oh, you can go to a gallery alone. Sure, you can, but that's not why you put it there. You put it in some environment. The work that you, John, you do, that you put it in some environment so someone will come. They will come and stand, and something will happen because they stood there in front of it. And we don't get to do any those things now. It's really hard. The other grant that I am working on is to try to enable some of this string of musicians who I've encountered up and down the river to play together. In that we've all seen lots and lots of YouTube videos of people playing together as a virtual band. Well, it involves, just some core technology, some editing capabilities, a few pieces of software, and some expertise to do that, to enable musicians to be able to actually play together as a band, at least have part of that experience. And so, but sadly, my now 10-year-old computer cannot be updated with anything. It just is so frustrating. I can't input things from my iPhone into my computer anymore because they belong to 2 different worlds. So I have to replace all of this equipment that's working just fine, he says, with some frustration, because it can't be updated anymore. Does this resonate with you, John White?
Lee, you continue to be played at the Canby Nursing Home and Assisted Living Facility with that Canby Area Arts Council YouTube video. The activities department will continue to use it, and they'll be bringing it, up throughout the winter because they'll continue to be locked down with COVID probably next year, whenever.
Yeah,
I don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah. None of us do. I did some DVDs and distributed them to local places here too, and I got to go up finally and play outdoors at Fairway View here in Ortonville last week or 2 weeks ago, just before we left on this trip. Play outdoors, windows open into their rooms, and like, I gotta indulge me while I tell you this, but I joined, when I moved back to Ortonville, I joined Kiwanis Club because it was a really easy way to get hooked up with volunteer things. And they still sing 2 songs every time they meet together. And in part they do because this Pat is her name, this piano player is just incredible. You know, I mean, she could put more flourishes into Happy Birthday than you can really imagine. Owns the entire keyboard, can play in lots of styles, and it's got a lot of funk in this woman. I really like her. And she sadly is now up at Fairway View in hospice and will play no more. I got to go up and sit outside her window and sing songs to her a few days before that, which triggered the eventual larger concert. But you could just see what that did to her. I mean, how that transformed her. Yeah. So it was a good reminder of how powerful art can be. So.
And how fleeting.
How fleeting. Yeah, yeah. There are moments I often, well, on John's work, if you do not know John, he's an outdoor photographer, that it's the moment that you capture. I mean, it's the colors, it's the shapes, it's the composition, it's that, but the astonishing work it takes to bring one moment alive like that is, yeah, good thing. It's a good thing. What else?
Is it snowing there?
It did snow on us this afternoon. Honestly, we are we travel in a home converted Class B RV. It's one of the long, tall Sprinter van that UPS and others use a lot. We converted it. We have a king size bed in it, 6 feet of kitchen and a toilet in back. And so we drove out to the Arches in Utah. Just wow. The landforms, how insignificant it makes you feel when you're looking at things that are 65 million years old. I mean, we go down to the National Wildlife Refuge in Ortonville, has granite outcroppings that we're told are 1 billion years old. But that's in igneous rock, I believe is the term. Where we are, it's all this layered seabed. It was all this battle land between sea and land, and that inland sea that kept receding, going back and forth. And so it's all stacked up in little history lessons that you can, you know, and it rips apart like it's a piece of cloth and exposes 60 million years of layers that you can say, okay, and this is when they did this, and this is when they, I mean, it really remarkable. And when you think of what a thin, insignificant layer we are on top of that history, it is humbling. I like that feeling. It reduces the angst of short-term things significantly, because you realize I don't amount to a blink of an eye in this whole thing. So a blink of the eye in my life is really not measurable. So it was profound beauty. We got lots of pictures taken, left no trash behind, picked up a fair amount of it. So a lot of extra people in these parks these days. It's any number of them are shut down because of COVID, but demand is way up because of COVID. And so we spent a lot of our time in what's called dispersed camping, which is if you got enough road clearance and you can get your vehicle there, you can stay there. It makes for some real beauty. and also real outlaw behavior. We finally waited everybody out over the weekend and went into the Arches National Park at 6 o'clock in the morning, just pre-dawn. And by the time we left at noon, they had closed it. It's full. There's too many people there. So, and then any number of the camps in the Rockies, both coming to and from, were interrupted by forest fires. Not just the West Coast fires, but fires in the Rockies. So Rocky Mountain National Park was closed. But for my money, the most beautiful drive I've ever gone on is at the Dinosaur National Park. And it's a little road up to Harper's Corner, which is not a corner at all. It's a cul-de-sac. Come on, people. You just end up in it. It's 28 miles in, 28 miles back, but the most astonishing array of geology I have ever seen in my life. So
A cul-de-sac is a circle of corners.
Been feeling melancholy of late. I realize it's a product of fall for me often, that there's something about nature that at the end of the day, just before it's all gone away and it turns night and dark and cold, the sun puts on this astonishing display. And yes, I know, John, you get up and you see that same astonishing one in the morning, but for the rest of us civilized people, we're sleeping in. So it's the sunset that I just right at the end, it does this. The leaves stay, an obedient, universal green all summer long. And then right before they die, they do this, wow, here I am show kind of thing. And it has made me think of maybe by songwriting, by doing the things that we still do, the same is true in our lives. That maybe now will be my most productive time, or what I leave behind will be worth the most. I don't know. Hadisha, a favorite person of ours in Ortonville, she runs Lingonberries and makes good coffee and breakfast treats. Just get there if you can. She posted a picture from her garden and said roughly the last rose bloomed. And I went, wow, the last rose bloomed today, Last rose bloomed today. Summer's gone, winter's on its way. Last rose bloomed today. That's what I've been working on. That and a little ditty about cruising west on I-70, soaking in the Rockies' majesty. I'm slow down to take it in. Other drivers think that's a cardinal sin. So, been songwriting, fun thing to get to do when you have time to go and be quiet and listen to things. So,
Did you want to do one little ending song, or?
What should it be, Jeannie? Oh. You should
Thanks,
yeah. Watching the windshield widescreen. Texas is today's scene. Soundtracks and melody, the tires hum. When the credits roll, the day is done. In Amarillo on a cold winter's day, headed down to Abilene Way. You want the handle of a tool to be flat, the handle of Texas, it's all of that. Watching the windshield widescreen, Texas is today's scene. Soundtracks and melody, the tires hum. When the credits roll, the day is done. We're passing through the little town of Plainview. Cowboy says, I got a word for you. Our name alone says the truth of it. There ain't nothing to see and nothing to stop you from seeing it. Oh, the Cadillac Ranch there, now there's a sight to see. And Buddy Martin, it is always free. Spray can litter, each having their part. They're creating accidental art. Watching the windshield widescreen, Texas is today's scene. Soundtracks and melody, the tires hum. When the credits roll, the day is done. And let me end with what I started with. Thank you, SMAC. It has been an incredible journey. I am having more fun than I really should be allowed to have. You can ask John.
It's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much for joining us today, too. Especially since it had to happen during your vacation. I'm really glad it still worked.
When you're retired, it's very hard to know when you're on vacation.
See you in a couple days.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. It was good to see everyone.
See you tomorrow, Lee.
See ya. See you, John.
Thank you,
See you,
Lee.
Boots.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Wow.